Across this whole country, folks are drowning in debt, buried under it. The credit cards, the loans, the payments that never end, the constant weight of owing more than they have. And my people, as a rule, live their whole lives free of that burden, owing little or nothing, sleeping easy at night with no debt hanging over them. It isn't that we earn great fortunes, for we surely don't. It's that we live by a handful of old habits, plain and simple habits that keep us out of debt for life. And today I'm going to give you 8 of them, one by one, so you can take up any of them yourself. Now I'll say plainly, I'm no financial advisor, and everyone's situation is different. So take these as the old, time-tested wisdom they are, and apply them as fits your own life. But these 8 habits kept our families out of debt for generations, and they can lighten your burden too. So let me give them to you. The first habit, and everything else stands upon it, is to live below your means. To spend less than you take in, always, without exception. This sounds so simple it hardly seems worth saying, and yet it is the whole foundation, and it's the very thing most folks fail to do. The modern way is to spend everything you earn and then some, to let your spending rise to meet your income, and then push past it into debt. But the old way, the way that keeps a family free, is to always spend less than comes in, to keep your living beneath your earning, so that there's always a little margin, a little left over. A family that spends less than it earns will never fall into debt and will slowly build security. A family that spends more than it earns will always be in debt, no matter how much it earns. It's the plainest arithmetic in the world, and it's the master key to the whole thing. Live below your means. Everything else flows from that. The second habit is to avoid debt itself, to have a deep and healthy wariness of it, to see it plainly for what it is. My people look at debt very differently than the modern world does. The modern world treats debt as normal, as expected, as just how things are done. Borrowing for everything, carrying balances, paying interest as a way of life. But we see debt as a burden, a form of bondage, a thing that puts you in the power of the lender and steals your freedom and your peace. There's an old saying, the borrower is servant to the lender, and we believe that down to our bones. So we avoid debt wherever we possibly can. And the great practical rule that flows from this is simple. If you can't afford a thing, you don't buy it yet. You wait, and you save up for it, and you buy it when you have the money, rather than borrowing and paying it off with interest for years. Save first, then buy, instead of buy first, then owe. That one reversal, saving up for things instead of borrowing for them, would free most folks from the great weight of debt entirely. The third habit is to buy good things and make them last, and to repair rather than replace. The modern way is to buy cheap, use it up or let it break, throw it away and buy again, over and over, a constant stream of buying and discarding that drains money endlessly. The old way is different. You buy a good, solid, well-made thing once, you take care of it, you maintain it, you repair it when it breaks, and you make it last for years and years, a lifetime even, handing it down. A good tool cared for lasts a lifetime. Good boots resold last far longer than cheap ones replaced. A well-made piece of furniture serves for generations, and all the money that most folks pour into replacing cheap, broken things over and over, we simply keep by buying well once and making it last. Repair, maintain, care for what you have. Make it last. It saves a fortune over a life, and it's a whole different way of relating to your possessions, treating them as lasting things to be cared for rather than disposable things to be used up and tossed. The fourth habit is contentment, and this may be the deepest and most powerful of them all, for it strikes at the very root of why folks fall into debt. Most debt, when you trace it back, comes from wanting more than you have and need, from trying to keep up with the neighbors, from chasing the newer, bigger, fancier thing, from a restless discontent that's never satisfied. And my people prize contentment above almost everything. The ability to be deeply, quietly satisfied with a simple, sufficient life, with what you have and who you're with. We don't try to keep up with anyone. We don't chase status or the newest thing. We're content with enough, and enough is a feast. And do you see what that contentment does? It cuts off the very source of most debt at its root. The person who is content with what they have doesn't go into debt chasing what they don't have. The person forever wanting more will always be in debt, no matter how much they get. Contentment isn't just a nice feeling, it's one of the most powerful financial habits there is, for it ends the endless wanting that drives folks into debt in the first place. The fifth habit is to save, faithfully and steadily, to always put something by. A family that lives below its means has a little left over, and the habit is to save that, to put it by faithfully, building up a store against the future and against hard times. This does two great things. It builds security, a cushion, so that when a hard time comes, an unexpected expense, a lean season, you have savings to draw on rather than being forced into debt. And it builds toward the future, letting you save up to buy the things you need with cash rather than credit. The family with savings put by is a family that can weather storms without borrowing, that can buy what it needs without debt, that has a foundation beneath its feet. So save, steadily, faithfully, always putting a little by. It's the other side of living below your means, and together they build a wall against ever falling into debt. The sixth habit is self-reliance, doing it yourself rather than paying others, which saves enormous sums over a life. My people do so much for themselves. We grow much of our own food, which saves the grocery bill. We make and mend and build and fix rather than hiring it done or buying new. We cook from scratch rather than buying costly prepared food. We tend to our own needs with our own hands and skills rather than paying for 100 services and conveniences. And every single thing you do for yourself is money you don't spend, money kept in your pocket. The modern way is to pay for everything, to have no skills and buy every service, and it drains money like water. The old way of self-reliance, of capable hands that can do and make and fix and grow, keeps a fortune over a lifetime, and it builds a deep independence besides. Learn to do for yourself, and you'll spend far less and owe far less. The seventh habit is to buy used, secondhand, rather than always paying for new. There's a great foolishness in the modern love of everything brand new, for new things cost far more and often lose much of their value the moment you buy them. The old thrifty way is to buy used when you can, good, solid, second-hand things at a fraction of the cost of new. Much of what a family needs can be bought used for far less and serve just as well, and there's no shame in it at all, only wisdom, for the money saved buying used instead of new over a whole life of purchases is a very great sum. So look to the used and the second-hand before the new and the costly. Let your pride in owning the newest thing go, and keep the money instead. And the eighth habit is community, the way a people help one another rather than each family borrowing a loan from banks. This is a beautiful part of the old way, and it's near vanished from the modern world. When my people need something big done, a barn built, a harvest brought in, help in a hard time, the community comes together and does it, hand to hand, neighbor helping neighbor, for free, for love. We share tools, share labor, share what we have, help each other through the hard times. And so a family in need doesn't have to run to a bank and borrow because the community is there to help. That web of mutual help, of neighbors caring for neighbors, is a kind of security and provision that means folks rarely need to fall into debt, for there's always help at hand. The modern world traded that community away for a life of isolated households, each borrowing alone from distant banks, and it was a poor trade. So build community, help your neighbors, and let them help you. Share and lend a hand. That web of mutual care is worth more than any line of credit, and it keeps a whole community out of debt together. Let me go back and give a few of these more flesh, because I want them to be things you can actually do, not just fine ideas. Take that first one, living below your means, for it's the foundation, and folks always ask how. The plainest way is to know what comes in and what goes out, to actually reckon it, which most folks never do. The old folks kept close track of their money, knew exactly what they had and what they spent, and lived deliberately within it. Most folks today have only the vaguest notion where their money goes, and money you don't track is money that slips away. So the first practical step is simply to know your numbers, what comes in, what goes out, and to make sure the going out stays below the coming in, always, with a margin to spare. That plain reckoning done faithfully is half the battle won. Take the buying used, and let me give you a sense of how far it reaches. Near everything a family buys can be found used for a fraction of the new price. Furniture, sold used for pennies on the dollar of what it costs new, and often better made than the new. Tools which last generations, bought used and serving just as well. Clothing, children's especially, who outgrow things before they're half worn. Vehicles, if you have one, for a new one loses a great part of its value the very moment it's driven off, so the used one is bought after someone else has already paid that loss. Books, dishes, household goods, near everything. A family that buys used as a matter of course, rather than new, spends a small fraction of what it otherwise would, over a whole lifetime of purchases, and that difference is enormous. It's one of the simplest and most powerful thrifts there is, and it costs you nothing but letting go of the pride of the new. Take the self-reliance and see how the small things add up. Every meal cooked from scratch instead of bought ready-made or eaten out saves a great deal. Every garden that grows a family's vegetables saves the grocery bill all summer and put by all winter. Every repair done with your own hands instead of hiring it saves the whole cost of the labor. Everything made at home instead of bought saves its price. None of these is large by itself, but a whole life lived this way, doing and making and growing and fixing, rather than buying and hiring, keeps a truly enormous sum over the years and builds a deep, capable independence besides. The capable hands are worth more than a high wage, for they let you live well on far less. Let me tell you how it looked in the family I grew up in, for these weren't rules to us, but simply the air we breathed. My parents spent less than came in, always, without ever making a fuss about it, for it was simply how one lived. We grew and put up much of our food. What we bought to last, and cared for, and mended, and made do with. There was no chasing of the neighbors, no wanting of the newest thing, only a deep contentment with our sufficient, simple life. What little was left over was faithfully put by, and when a big need came, the community was there. And so we lived, not rich, never rich, but free, utterly free of debt, and secure, and at peace about money in a way I've since learned is rare and precious. My parents never lay awake worrying over payments they couldn't make, never felt the crushing weight of owing because they never owed. They had built through these plain habits a life of freedom and peace, and they handed those habits to me as the most practical inheritance a person could receive. That's what I'm handing to you now. And let me speak honestly about why so many folks fall into debt now. For it's not simply foolishness, and understanding it helps you resist it. The whole modern world is built to push you into debt. You're surrounded every hour by advertising designed to make you want things you don't need and feel unhappy with what you have. Credit is pushed at you, made easy, made to feel normal, the card in every wallet, the loan for everything, the buy now, pay later at every turn. The whole system profits from your debt, from the interest you pay, and so it's designed to draw you in, to make spending easy and saving hard, to make debt feel ordinary and thrift feel strange. My people are protected from a great deal of this simply by living apart from it, by not being soaked in the advertising and the easy credit and the constant pressure to want and spend and borrow. But you can protect yourself too, once you see it clearly, once you understand that the wanting is manufactured, that the ease of the debt is a trap, that the whole thing is designed to separate you from your money and your freedom. Seeing it plainly is the first defense. Once you understand that the pressure to spend and borrow is deliberately made, you can begin to resist it, to step back from it, to choose the old free way instead. Now let me be the honest neighbor with you for a moment, because I want to be fair and real about all this. I know that not everyone's situation is the same, and that some folks face hard circumstances, real hardship, medical costs, low wages, situations where debt isn't about foolishness at all, but about genuine hard necessity. And I'd never look down on anyone struggling under debt they couldn't help. These habits aren't about judging anyone. They're about the things within your own power, the choices you can make, the habits you can build to move toward freedom over time, wherever you're starting from. And I'm no financial advisor, and I can't know your particular situation, so take all this as the old general wisdom it is, and apply what fits your own life and your own circumstances. Some of these you may be able to take up today, others may take years, and some may not fit your situation at all, and that's all right. Take what serves you and leave the rest. And let me add one more thing that ties all 8 together and carries them forward, and that's the teaching of them to the children. My people don't just live these habits, we hand them down, deliberately, so that each new generation grows up knowing them in their bones. The children see their parents living within their means, mending and making and growing, content with enough, saving faithfully, helping neighbors. They grow up in it, learn it by living it, and carry it into their own households when the time comes. And that's a great part of why these habits keep whole families free of debt, not just for a life, but for generations. The modern world, by contrast, hands its children the opposite, teaches them to want, to spend, to borrow, to chase, and so the debt passes down the generations too. So if you take up these habits, teach them to your children as well, by living them where the little ones can see, and by talking with them plainly about money and thrift and contentment. Give them the priceless inheritance of knowing how to live free of debt, and you'll have given them something worth more than any sum of money you could leave them. For money left to a child who never learned these habits is soon gone, but a child who learned the habits will be free their whole life long, and their children after them. That's the true inheritance, not the money, but the wisdom of how to live free. With that said, honestly, let me tell you why these habits matter so much more than just the money, for that's the real heart of it. Debt is a heavy, heavy burden, not just on the pocketbook, but on the soul. It weighs on you, worries you, steals your sleep and your peace, puts you in bondage to the lender, robs you of your freedom and your choices. A person deep in debt is not truly free, for their earnings are spoken for, their choices constrained, their future mortgaged. But a person free of debt sleeps easy, walks light, and is truly free. Free to make their own choices, to weather hard times, to live as they wish, beholden to no lender. That freedom, that peace, that lightness of a life free of the burden of debt, is worth more than a great deal of what folks go into debt to buy. My people may not be rich in the world's eyes, but we are free, free of that crushing weight that so many carry, and that freedom is a treasure beyond price. And underneath all 8 of these habits is really a single spirit, the spirit of the whole old way, of living simply, within your means, content with enough, self-reliant, and bound together in community. It's a whole way of relating to money and possessions and wanting that's entirely different from the modern way. And it's a way that leads to freedom rather than bondage, to peace rather than worry, to enough rather than endless wanting. That spirit, more than any single habit, is the real secret, and it's a spirit anyone can begin to take up wherever they are. So here's what I'd leave you with. You needn't take up all 8 of these at once, and you needn't become Amish to use them. Choose one. Perhaps you simply resolve to spend less than you earn this month and put a little by, or you decide to repair a thing instead of replacing it, or to buy the next thing used instead of new, or to wait and save for something rather than borrowing. Or you work on that deep contentment, that being satisfied with enough. Just one to begin, and build from there as you're able. And over time, habit by habit, you can move toward that same freedom my people have long known, the freedom of a life unburdened by debt, light and peaceful and truly your own. Because in the end, this isn't really about money at all. It's about freedom and peace and living a life that's truly yours rather than mortgaged to the lender. And that freedom is within reach of near anyone willing to take up these old, simple, time-tested habits one at a time and build slowly toward a life free of the great burden of debt, the way our people have lived, free and content and at peace for as long as anyone can remember. If this is the kind of practical old wisdom you've been hungry for, the kind that lightens your burdens and connects you back to the good sense of those who came before, then stay here with me. There's so much more where this came from, and I aim to bring it back to you, one piece at a time. Subscribe, and we'll keep remembering the old ways together, because some of the most valuable things we ever knew are the simple ones we let ourselves forget, and the old habits that keep a family free of debt are surely among the most precious of them all.